So we're going to see if we can design just by sketching a few spaceships without having a full grasp of fundamentals. What do I plan to do by this? As you can see, I'm trying to sketch the famous square duplication method that the How to Draw book by Scott Robertson is known for. This is the most basic thing you learn in the entire book, but yet the fundamental that will guide you throughout the whole thing. Now, as you can see, you can duplicate with this technique the cross, and then finding the middle of the square and marking one of the well, with this you can duplicate in any perspective any rectangle. But the book obviously evolves from this. It goes further, beyond and beyond. Even in the beginning, there's a lot more fundamentals for the rest of the book as exercises. But I honestly don't remember much. I could never memorize them all. For example, duplicating tilted curves, mirroring 3D curves and such and such. But as long as you have as you know what perspective is, and know what angles to use, what kind of lenses there are, the types of perspective, and the rectangle multiplication method, this that's enough for you not to be intimidated to try out everything. As long as you can do what I'm doing, even if it's not completely proportional, even though I know that's kind of ironic considering the entire purpose of the design fundamentals of How to Draw by Scott Robertson is to draw things in perspective and with the correct proportions. But sometimes that holds you back, because normally when you see drawings of this kind, they're so perfect to the point that you become intimidated by drawing. And the biggest fundamental of all is iteration, is for you to just draw and draw and draw. After all, practice is everywhere, regardless of the matter we're talking about, regardless of the fundamental we're talking about. So that's the type of problem that normally goes into this very rigorous perspective training. So right now I'm just sketching a bunch of spaceship thumbnails. I'm going to do the most basic way possible, the most basic silhouettes I can, rough as they should be. And then I'm going to put them in perspective, and I'm going to use Scott Robertson's method, but with a twist. I am not going to use any of the tilted curves mirroring techniques. I'm not going to use. I'm going to be well, I won't say purposely, because honestly, I do not remember lots of things in the book. I probably will have to go over many of the exercises again. But what I can do, and what I can do at all times whenever I have a sketchbook in hand, is I can take what I know about perspective and the most of the fundamentals of the book, which is the rectangle duplication method, and apply it to the design of anything I want. Right now I'm going to select a spaceship thumbnail. I'm going to draw in that. I'm going to put it in perspective, eventually lower its opacity, and starting to find construction lines. The twist here is, since I'm not using the extreme correct method, I'm just going along to see what I'll be able to find. And I'm not doing this the way it should be done, as you'll see. Normally you can you can make many make many drawings of different views of the object you're trying to draw. I've only made two, and sometimes that is enough. And by made two, I mean I made the same one and then just only put it in a different perspective in order to give me like a side projection, even though it's not really a side. It's not really like the down projection that would normally be used to make three-dimensionality, but it gives me at least a sense of what the depth would be like to the side volumes of this spaceship. It's going to be very rough and abstract in a moment, so because all the construction lines I'm going to use are going to have a different purpose, and that's what I want to kind of incentivize for people to that are tackling this kind of subject, which is very rigorous, very intimidating, to just kind of go with the flow and not be afraid. Just It's not a problem to just do what you see and then just do it in your own way. I'm going to make as many construction lines, and to be honest, though many of them are influenced by this method, lots of them are as random as can be, are just my imagination trying to find proportion, trying to find ways to dictate certain parts of the spaceship in perspective, and how it would be here and there in one side, below, or the other side. And this is all for the sake of just doing. This is for the sake of stop being intimidated by if your car, your spaceship, your object is going to be perfectly proportionate in perspective. What's more important is that you actually start iterating on it, start making many of them. And even if you succeed in doing all this design work, you have to, well, then design must be something you want to achieve. But there's so much more to art, so many more facets, so many more areas that you don't need the extreme rigorous approach that people like Feng Zhu, Scott Robertson, and Sid Mead take. If you are going to do more, you'll need this type of fundamentals in a way or another. But you don't need to be a designer. You don't need to be a concept artist. You don't need to be, the type of people that would do something so clean and so perfect. If you are someone who is attempting to become better at illustration, for example, like I said, you'll still need these fundamentals. That because drawing in perspective and drawing things in perspective well is something that is useful for everyone. However, when you deviate from the intention these fundamentals exist for, it's okay to get creative. It's okay to find your own way of doing stuff. And in the end, after tons and tons of practice, and practice is the most important thing about all of this, then you'll find your own way of doing stuff, and it'll probably be way more unique than if you just did what a book tells you or what a tutor thinks it's the best, because it's probably just the best for a job, and that's not normally what everyone is looking for. There's different people search for different things. So right now I'm filling in just shapes, just trying to find detail and volume with the two projections I've got. I am making just a bunch of chaos lines, but at the same time there's some rigorous aspects to it, because they're still kind of connecting to the grid. They're still connecting to each other. They're still trying to find they're carving their way out of the bidimensional space that they're emerging from. But in the end, I have no intention of making this the most perfect it can be. In fact, one of my intentions with this is to fill the entire drawing with as many construction lines as I can. And if this seems too rough to the point you don't know where I'm going, it's because when I turned OBS Studio to record, essentially the pressure was gone. I could not use pen pressure, which I'm used to in Photoshop at least. But I tried to do what I could, and that's not the end all be all of drawing digital. So you can get away without pressure, I think. So now I'm just making I just made so many lines going around the form and construction lines to put the object in synchrony with the grid that I'm just absolutely overloaded, and I just use that as a motif for the rest of the image. So I'm just overloading it even more. I'm just making a big mess, because with these shadowy masses I've created, I can already see a sense of three-dimensionality in the perspective grid I've made. Surely it's not perfect, but perfection is not what I'm looking for. I'm just looking to get something done, and something, well, what I mean by reverse engineer now is I'm going to see if the volumes are fine, and right after I am going to see what I can do with these exaggerated construction lines and form lines around my drawing, to see if I can carve from that different shapes. Essentially, instead of using construction lines to find a design, I'm going, to bring a design to completion, I'm going to use them to find a design. And by that I mean I'm going to erase detail to find new detail. I'm going to put shapes of cleanliness over shapes of messiness to see if there's something that can come out of this. I just thought this was a fun exercise, and it completely shows just how there's so many different ways you can go around in this one type of drawing. You do not need to be constrained by the normally extreme objectives of making just something that's completely clean, completely proportionate, completely in synchrony with perspective. When you don't even have the practice to achieve something like that, it's good to try. I think you should still, obviously, try the methods that. And now that I've got all of this, I've essentially just completely filled this with just white, and now I'm just ready to find new forms, like as if this was a skeletal understructure, an endoskeleton of the spaceship, and now I'm trying to find how it all connects. And this is just fun. It's just making lines again, but this time without the extreme excess of the construction lines I've made before. And let's see if we can make a pseudo design come out of this sketch. And there's not much intention behind this. This is just something I did, so I didn't think in terms of where the cockpit is, where the wings are, the engine. But that's part of the purpose, I think. Of course, if you're actually going to make a design, you'll need a purpose. You'll need actual design sets, and an objective to come up with your design. But I think it's more important just to create methods, to create your own ways, to get impetus, to get your haste, your initiative, to just do this on a whim and do many of them. Even when your head is full of something else, just have the initiative to do as many of these as possible. And even if they just become saturated, surely it may create some bad, it may create some, they say practice makes perfect, but practice makes habit. It may create some bad habits, but at the same time, I think once you've done enough of this, it's easier to reverse engineer. And since you've drawn already so many, for example, spaceships with a bunch of detail, with a bunch of farm lines, construction lines that just show you in your own way where things are, how you get from point A to point Z, the completion of, or whatever could be called complete of your design, then you almost can take the more clean, focused designs out of that mess, because your mileage, it's almost like you go across a field so many times that you just know every inch of it, as opposed to just trying to cross it in the most perfect way possible. And I know there's different people. Some people are just going to try to make the most perfect design at first, and some people have no problem just going every single time with a dedicated design for something. But honestly, sometimes my head is full of some other stuff, and I just need to find any excuse to do something, and then sometimes that something happens to be some fundamental practice that I haven't been doing in a while, and this is normally what comes out. A very, very intuitive, yet not practical way of doing stuff, at least in the field that it's intended for. But it's practical for me, because I am not a designer, and I'm not really trying to be one, at least not one in the terms of rigorous concept art for some very high budget video game or movie or whatever. I'm still doing stuff in the way that it's for me. Now that I've already kinda can I even say cleaned up? It still looks like a mess. It's all a sketch in the end. didn't took that long to do. But I just find that this is a nice way to make your drawings. In fact, once you have the mess, you can take many things out of it. Once you just have a billion lines, once you just have masses of form, of shadow, there's so many ways that you can just clean it away and take something else. The same block of clay can make many sculptures. So this time around I'm going to, I think the other one looked too crazy. These are all both going to be organic, because I think the original design looked like such. And I must say I do not have the most practice with the construction methods of designers, but since this is my way of going around it and already got sort of organic shapes, I'm still going to do an organic spaceship. But this time it's not going to be as bony, it's going to be more lumpy. Because I can take that away from this very same shape. I can make different designs, even in the same motif, even in the same type of language that I've already made with this one silhouette and this one constructed sketch. And you just do it over and over again. This is just something I took some time off to do, but you could just fill this page. You could just fill pages and pages just from this one thing taken from the same sketch. And then you could probably, I don't know if you should do that because you should probably try different designs out, but it's important to know the difference between the scaffolding and the texture. Right now I'm doing the texture, and the same house can have many different decorations and just seem like a completely different place. I think I lost, even though I'm not going for as much of an idea of three-dimensionality as I can, I think I lost way too much of still my intended three-dimensionality that I want to give this drawing. So I mean in the front part of the ship. When I finish it, it's actually going to look very flat. I think I should have given it a little more empty space. I think these details I'm doing right now are not helping. So I don't know. Like I said, it's not perfect. It's just a way to go to start doing things. And the way to start doing things, it's more important than anything else, because it's way harder to start in pretty much everything. Once you start, then you're on your way. You have your track made. That's the most important part for me. I think the biggest fundamentals above design, above perspective, above anatomy, above gesture are starting, obviously, and mileage. Because if you think about it, even if you take away everything else and you're just kind of going around without really knowing what is the do first and do afters, then you'll still have something else just by the virtue of doing things over and over again. So as if you start doing things, if you find a way to start them easily, you'll still have a better track record than maybe even someone who studies fundamentals pretty often, if you just draw way more. I think. I really don't like that spaceship. It looks really flat on the front. Damn it. What have I done? What have I done? I don't know if I'm going to be able to fix that. They kind of look like some weird aliens also. At least the top one looks like it could be a creature from the Panzer Dragoon series, because they're all like simultaneously organic but kind of mechanic also. There's like these mixes of even the main dragon, you don't, it just feels like they're obviously organic beings, but they have these stone like, almost machine like parts in them. But it's not in a classic cyborg way, like it's something that it was attached to. Rather, it's just something that it feels like these organisms were born with. I really like the design, the concept design of that video game series. It's kind of based on Mobius, but they also went on their own path. really underrated. I mean, not underrated is not the best word, more like underknown, because something like Panzer Dragoon Saga just one of the rarest games, solely by being on a console that didn't sell well, and they're not having that many copies of the game being made, and especially by the fact that they lost their source code, so it's going to be a legend soon. Yeah, but the art design of those games, I really love them. I always love mixes between organic and mechanic stuff, organic and stony stuff. And this is normally how I conciliate that with other types of designs. But I also think that is something I do way too often, and I need to start kind of going away from it. And that's normally when I just start drawing from reference and study actual real life structures, or objects or something. Just a little guy for scale. And is it done? Is it done? I think it's done. I think it's over. So subscribe. I don't know if I'll do more of these. I'm just reciting now. I want to do more drawing videos, even if just to practice speech while drawing. So cool. It's done. It's done.